Yeah, so this is how we're going to go. This first chart, we didn't do this in our chart in our classes, but this just has the natal chart with the color on it and the constellations around it. But my sun is in Libra on, it's about the 2 o'clock mark here. And 1, 2, okay. So, but it moves, my sun now, I put a color band for each planet for how the progressions go. So the sun moves 90 degrees. It's right on the degrees on the inside of the wheel here. It moves right along to Capricorn. That's my progressed sun in my life. It's going to go down through it's going to go through Libra into Scorpio, into Sag, into Capricorn. Oh yeah, there was one other thing I wanted. We'll come to this in a second. But this, then I put where the sun is right now. I'm doing my chart for 1960. We're going to do my chart as if we're doing the interpretation for 1967. But everyone else's chart we're going to do for now, what's coming up, where things are going as we go on with the classes. But this one I'm just going back because it was the key time. It was just before I left North America to go to India. Okay, so this was before I had my visions of astrology and things of the sort. So it was a profoundly deep time to me. This is where the sun was. It was in Scorpio, and then this is where it's going to be the rest of my life. Then I take the Mercury goes forward. It's the orange line. You can see it. You see the retrograde, and it goes forward. The dot, the black dot, is where it was when I'm doing this session. This is just before India. It's just before it went retrograde. And then I have the Venus. It's the green line comes up, it goes forward, retrograde, and it's always going already retrograde. By the time I'm going to India, it's between Venus and the IC, just in that area. Then it backs up, goes forward, stays in Scorpio and Sag all my life. Then the Mars just goes straight forward from Scorpio straight through over to Capricorn. Maybe it gets to Aquarius if I live long enough. And the Jupiter just goes. So each of these are little phases there. And these are phases that are going on within. There are internal dialogue, regardless of where the transits are. There are people who, the Church of Light, there are people who just work with the progressions and don't even work with the transits because they want to just work with the spiritual things. Why concentrate on the others? But they both have an effect. We're out in the outer world with the transits, and we have our inner processing going on. If you're going to try and deal with someone who has a complex or a big problem, you got to be able to tune into both things. Here's what happened out in the world. Here's how I'm processing things now. And here's where it's going to, before you can get to a healing perspective of where you're on your life. So this is just one way of putting out all your progressions so you're in a place where you can see them. But we're not, again, this is just the organization. There's going to be several ways I'm going to show you. We've done them. This was just a unique thing that I had done. We're going to work mostly with our regular computer charts that we print out. Okay, now, when you're trying to see the progressions to the transits, special thing happens. Before I want to talk about this for a minute or two. It's 30 years. There's 30, Saturn's a 30-year cycle, 29 and a bit. 30-year cycle, and we watch how it goes around. It's so real how it goes around in life. We can see the 7.5-year cycles, the phases that go on within it. It's so lucid. Well, in progressions, the sun spends 30 years in a sign of the zodiac, and it'll go through 2 or 3 in our lifetime. So we have 30 years in a sign. One Saturn cycle to one progressed sun going through a sign. It's a marriage made in heaven. That they're two corresponding realities. So as the progressed sign goes through one sign, and then Saturn do its whole cycle, starting from wherever it does in your chart at that point, and then it'll do the same thing as it goes through the next sign in the same phases. So like these are with slight shifts. So these are two things that have to be related to each other that allow us to start merging the time factors in our life and see the outer and the inner coming together. The third thing is the new moons, and the new moons and the full moons, the progressed new moons and full moons. Every new moon after we're born happens at 30 days apart. That's 30 years of progression. So not only do we have a sun going through a sign 30 years, we have the moon going around and hitting the new moon every 30 years, which are really spiritual insights across a lifetime. It's only going to be 2 or 3 of them. it's important to know where those are and how they punctuate your Saturn cycle. So these are it's like holding this all together. If you just got that and you didn't have the transits, it's not as relevant. So the way we taught it was to go through these stages, develop these stages to get your feelings, to get secure on each level. Relatively secure. It's always a mystery, but you've got your techniques of putting a natal chart together, the steps to go through, you've got that part done. Then you can see the timing of how that evolves and what you do with that out in the world. And once you got that fixed and you have a good sense, you get a sense, okay, I know where Saturn is, I see where it's going, I got it. You're not watching your chart every day. You got the main picture and you're working on it. But then you start to see the inner things going on within that. And there's 30-year phases, 30-year periods inside that correlate to the outer, but aren't saying exactly the same thing. That's unique for each person. That's part of the magic of what we have to try and get to with working with a chart. And again, you can't, if you're working, the traditional way of working with transits, you do a chart for the moment you're doing, and you just compare the two charts, and you just compare every planet, every aspect, everything, and it gets so much information. You're just talking about things, but what someone's absorbing, what's being said, what's more important, what's not important, it gets somewhat distorted in that. When you take one planet at a time and you watch it around a lifetime, you get to know that planet. You can talk about it to that person in a way that's going to really be relevant. You got the proper time perspective on it. So this is, I still think the same with progressives, one planet at a time. It's enough. It keeps it simple. So even if you get the chart to compare the chart, you have to stop that chart, that momentary transit chart, and look at it and see where things evolve, where it came from, where it's going to make sense and where it is. So always I'm looking 4 or 5 years back and 4 or 5 years forward to see specifically what's going on in a person's life once I got the Saturn thing together. Really, we're looking at where you've come from in your life, the last 30 years, the next 30 years, really from the beginning of your life till now, till the end. You're really getting the overview before you can see how it's relevant to where you are in this moment now. And you know, if you're just happy and free, you don't have to think about these things. You can just wing it through your life and never know all of these things and probably be happier for it. So astrology doesn't make it easier, but it can make it more meaningful and more relevant and more full of growth. At least it has been for me. So we start with our basic natal chart, you know, and we're going to have to go through. You see, you look at the sun. It's my sun's below the horizon. This is my chart. The sun's below the horizon, and it's rising. So in the houses, I'm projecting where I'm coming from. And that's coming from my IC up. And I'm projecting what I believe and what I know, and my instincts and intuitions. I'm projecting out in the world to see how real they are to other people, put it out to see what I can accomplish, 10th house. I usually do this by relating or teaching. I've done that all my life, put this out. And as long as when I didn't have anything to put out, I was lost. So astrology really was still being lost and then found, and then I have things to talk about, and it really reinforced me a lot. But then the setting part where you're responding to other people, I don't have much over there. I'm not there. That's not my strong suit in responding to others. It's informing others is my strong suit. I had to work hard, much harder, to be able to respond and understand the needs of other people and what they need to be able to pull out of my knowledge what they need to hear, rather than just say what I wanted to say. So you look back, you look back almost 50 years being an astrologer. If I look back at what I was doing 30 years ago, I have to take in cuts. That was where I was when a young man, and I was trying to do that, and that's my enthusiasm. I'm just seeing it differently now. It's evolved. So working the same things, but have different. I see them more differently. So that's my growth through it. So we have to work through all of these things. So I know that when I start my moon, it's up in the 11th house. I need friends and people. I need to feel I'm collecting friends, or I need to feel friends are visiting my home, or I'm visiting their homes. There's a personal element around friends. I learned to cook from a very young age, and just that type of thing. So that need to be part of a community. That's always been a basic security for me. When it's not there, I'm traveling around the world. I don't know where I am, or I'm going and meditating. I don't know. So, but we're going to go through all these things. So I just want you have to have your chart set up, and as we did, I highlight the the squares, the oppositions, the trines. You can mark the other aspects in and go at them, but it's enough. The main things in your chart are going to be the main things in your life. So you could, for yourself, you could look at all the minor aspects, but you start looking at someone else and trying to presume what it is, you're stretching things a little bit. You can do it, but by taking the time to do it, you're taking away from the main things. So it's enough to work with the main factors. Okay, so, and you really have to take the moon, then you take the Mercury and see how it's working. Then you take the Venus, you see it's above, below, it's rising, setting. My Venus, it's setting. It's the only planet I have setting. It's right at the lowest point of my chart, right on that conjunct the IC. So I put all this energy out, but boy, the minute someone likes me or doesn't like me or is appreciative or not appreciative, I'm immediately affected. Someone likes me, I'm pumped and I'm giving everything I got. When I had teachers, if a teacher liked me, boy, I was the best student. As soon as a teacher didn't like me, I was the worst student. Why bother? So this is a polarity in my life. So for me in my work, it's always been driving me to do something artistic, to make it work with the color, with the charts, to make a musical instrument, do things. I've always been driven to present things artistically or find a beautiful way of expressing them. But still, the rest of me is really research oriented and driven to have the knowledge. Okay, I'm not going to stay there. I don't want to talk about, we have our, well, maybe there was anything else here that I want to talk about. Yeah, I think I have to go back here a little bit. Okay. My heart and soul, my purpose in life, it's in Libra. It's colored by, it's want to share, want to have values, want to share ideas. So having ideas to share, teaching has been wonderful for me. When I get married, I tend to do the thinking for the relationship and do the planning for the relationship, however stupid that is. But I get caught up in that thing, and it took me 3 marriages to learn not to do that. But it's, we're together, I see we're going, we need to do this, we need to see these people, and I get pumped up in those things, and the other person is generally coming along, but I'm not necessarily following, I'm projecting. So that's my uniqueness or idiosyncrasy or hang up or whatever. And in worldly situations, it has good in one way, it has bad in other ways. But the sun being below, it's most of my planets in this intuitive quadrant below the horizon. It's there. But the Mercury and the Mars and the Jupiter, the learning, the thinking, the doing, all in my 3rd house. I had to experience, I had to know what I experienced. I had to travel when I was around difficult things. They're very afflicted. They're all squared by Saturn and Pluto. They're in Scorpio, okay? Like my sun's in Libra, but my Mercury, Mars, Jupiter are all in Scorpio. And really, we should be looking at each one separately. We've done it. We've gone over my chart. You've gone over the charts in the class. We've done all of these things. But the little review here is necessary to just recharge the chart, recharge the relationship to it. So this is, the Mercury Mars is sharp, it's smart, it's sarcastic, it's pushy. With Jupiter, I tend to exaggerate for effect. You know, when I was young, well, if I told a fish story, I'd always exaggerate things. So I had to learn how to get that perspective and bring that exaggeration down from effect to make it. It's a nice way of embellishing while teaching, but still, like the Saturn Pluto going forced me to get a bit more real, or whenever I exaggerate, I get caught on it, or challenged by it. So this is, but the need to learn. I traveled a lot, I've read a lot, I've lived in a library. Like this, these are all things that really work with this Mercury, Mars, and Jupiter in the 3rd house. I need to understand, need to learn, and getting the knowledge and working on the research. It's the research. It's this 3rd house, but it's also understanding brothers and sisters, abuse and family, things of these things come in and around that. Saturn, Pluto in the 12th house. I was afraid of my father. Not by the time he died, we worked it through, but when we were young, we were terrified of him. And principles and people in authority rarely have worked in my favor.